would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which I live and work, the Gundungurra land and people. I pay my respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. I also want to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands on which you, our listeners, are joining us from today. I recognise the deep connection that First Nations people have to this land, their enduring culture, and their commitment to the preservation and care for their country. This land was never ceded, and it always was and always will be Aboriginal land. Welcome to Beyond the Surface. This is a space for conversations that sit at the edges of faith, identity, power, and recovery, especially for those of us who have been shaped, stretched, or harmed by fundamental religion or high control systems. Some episodes are personal, some are reflective, some are educational or curious, or quietly disruptive. All of them are grounded in lived experience and a deep respect for the complexity of leaving, questioning, and rebuilding meaning. We will be talking about religious trauma, various forms of abuse, cult dynamics, queerness, and recovery, not in neat answers, but in honest conversations. In listening to these conversations, some parts might be heavy or activating for you. Please take care of yourself while listening and feel free to pause or step away if you need to. I'm Sam, and I'm really glad that you're here with us. Welcome, Stacy. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks, Sam. Thanks for having me. It's an honor to be here speaking with you.
Beautiful. I like to start all of my episodes with some location grounding. Where in the world are you at the moment?
Well, I from the United States, as you can tell by my accent, and I specifically live in the Pacific Northwest, which is for me, it's Oregon, the state of Oregon, and I live in the Portland area.
Lovely. We have,
Yeah.
it's always really interesting when I talk to people internationally, particularly in the US, when it's like the extremities of weather.
Yeah.
It's weird because it's like extremely hot here today, and I'm imagining that it is the polar opposite for you. So it's always really funny. In the alternate seasons, it's not too bad, but yeah, when it's summer versus winter, it's a weird time.
It is. I can't
Yeah,
imagine it. And you
yeah.
probably can't imagine it the other way.
No. No, I was
But
talking to someone just before Christmas, and we were talking about the whole summer versus winter Christmas, and it was quite funny.
I
Um,
heard that, and I heard
yeah.
that you liked it kind of cold.
Yes, I'm a winter baby. So this is like
Mhm.
I have a ring light shining on me, and it's just like heat city over here. So,
Oh,
but it'll
yeah.
be okay.
Yeah.
I like to start all of these episodes with a really vague, broad question, which is, where does your story start?
Well, I'm 64, so it's quite a long story. And I think that my story starts at the very beginning because, I grew up in a pretty fundamental household, but it was not evangelically fundamental or religiously fundamental, which
Okay.
I think is a little bit different than some stories because I did not grow up in that environment.
Yeah.
But I did grow up in a fundamental environment.
Okay.
So,
So what do
yeah,
you mean by, because obviously on this podcast, when we use the term fundamental, we think fundamental religion. So
right.
what are you referring to when you say a fundamental ho household but not religious?
Well, what I mean is it was pretty strict. It was pretty rigid.
Mm,
And I think that came, I was born in 1961. So I think that came from the time culturally. And it was a time after the Depression, World War II for my parents being born during those times.
mm,
And then in the 60s in America, I think it was a time of kind of relative prosperity.
yeah.
So that, my parents came from traumatic homes. They didn't have a lot, both alcoholic homes. And so financially, and, there wasn't a lot. So to kind of have this time of prosperity, I think was really important to them.
Mm,
And they both came out of these sort of traumatic homes. And so they wanted this lifestyle that they didn't have. And the way to maintain this lifestyle for them was to have these really strict morals and strict just things that we did. And I think part of it was just the culture too.
Mm.
Um, it was more like mom stayed at home, dad's worked, that type of thing. So I think, like religious fundamentalism, there was a box.
Yeah.
So it doesn't just happen in religion, right? It can happen in lots of different cultures.
Yeah.
And it certainly happened with mine. I mean, no moms when I was growing up worked. They all stayed at home and dads went to work
Yeah.
and moms raised the kids and did the housework. And it's just what it was.
Mm.
Um,
I
yeah.
mean, I'm sort of like imagining what everybody refers to as like the traditional like 1950s housewife, right? Like
Yes.
that sort of
Yep.
like image where it's like those old school traditional family structures, but it's just God is not at the center or the reason for it. It doesn't necessarily mean that the same sort of authoritative rule structure isn't there.
Exactly. And it totally was there. Like there was nothing else presented to me
Yeah.
as the way to be. This was the way to be. Interestingly enough, neither of my parents' upbringings were that way.
Ah,
My dad's mother worked, my mom's parents had a business. So it was very much the culture of the time, like the Leave It to Beaver.
right.
I don't know if you know that show, but
Yeah.
you know, your age and then Australia, I don't know what you
Mm.
guys have, but it was very much that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
And that continued well into the 70s. Yeah.
Okay. And so, not religious, but what was your, like, it's baked in. When we talk about the difference between religion in Australia and in the US, we often
Yeah.
refer to it as being baked into the water over there. Like, it's just everywhere. And so, whilst you might not have come from a religious home, what was your experience as a young person of religion, like at school or in communities?
Well, yeah, it's school, it was nothing. Which I'm glad for.
Yes, I'm glad for
Which
you as
yeah,
well.
I know, right? I went to a public school. Interestingly enough, we lived in Hawaii.
Oh,
So,
beautiful.
yeah, so I was only 6 months old when we moved there. My dad worked for IBM, just got a job there, and I lived there till I was almost in third grade. So culturally, that was very different.
Yeah.
But religiously, we did go to church. My parents, and like you say, baked in the water.
Yeah.
Love that. I've not heard that before, but I love that. But we would say, like, if you're born in America, if you're American, you're a Christian, pretty much.
Yes.
I mean, I heard that my whole childhood, and so we did go to church. We went
Yeah.
to a Lutheran church, and the only thing that I remember is going. It was something we did every Sunday. And I wanted to know about God. I don't have any recollection of learning about him. I
Mm.
know I went to Sunday school, and I remember as a kid climbing the mango trees and getting guava juice after. That's my only recollection.
Yeah.
So I didn't know anything about God. And we said a very rote prayer um at night before our meals.
Mm.
And it was just a memorized prayer that my dad would say. That was it. We never talked about God. It was very private and personal to my parents.
Yeah. So it's more cultural and community based as opposed to, having I'm like, it's back into my old, like having a personal relationship with God or a personal relationship with Jesus or anything like that. It was not
Nothing like
that.
that.
Yeah.
Not at all. We
Okay.
never talked about it.
Yeah.
And none of my community or my friends at that time in Hawaii talked about it at all.
Now, I know from the message that you've sent that that changed at around age 19, I believe. So,
Yes.
what happened and how did we go from what I guess we would call like a nominal Christian family
Yes.
to a born again Christian?
There's such a big difference, isn't
Yeah.
there?
Yeah, it's huge.
Huge. And so there's so much in my story, but what happened was we moved from Hawaii to California. That was a huge cultural shift for
Mm.
us as kids. I have two brothers. I'm the middle. I have an older brother and a younger brother. And so we were like fish out of water because Hawaii is a very, very different culture than even California. You might say, wow, that they seem so similar, West Coast, sun and all that. But one of the big changes was I lived in the San Francisco. We call it the Bay Area because there's the San Francisco Bay. So we lived in a suburb of San Francisco, and it's a very Catholic community. So I quickly learned that most of my friends were Catholic and I wasn't Catholic. And so
Mm.
I got that I wasn't a part, right? And I couldn't be a
Yes.
part. And
Yes.
that bothered me a lot.
Yeah.
I
I
couldn't
mean,
go
and
to their
also
stuff.
I imagine there was also like the whole like Christians and Catholics are not the like depending on which camp you sit in, one
Yeah.
is not one typically doesn't like the other, one typically doesn't think that the other is a Christian. There's like a whole thing.
Oh,
So I imagine that was there also.
oh, 100%. I mean, I certainly got that message of being excluded early on, that I wasn't a part, and there was no way for me to ever be a part of this.
Yes.
So we went to an Episcopal church only because my parents, there's like Lutheran and Episcopal, they just didn't, they liked this Episcopal church better. Again, Sam, same thing. Um, had no idea what we were doing. I saw Jesus on the cross with the nails in his hand, blood. I thought that is terrible. Why would anyone do that to somebody else?
Yeah.
But it didn't compute. We didn't read the Bible. There was nothing like that. So then I started in high school, I started working at a Catholic nursing home as a nurse's aide. And I did not like that. There were parts of it I liked because they had a chapel and I would go into the chapel at times and feel peace.
Mm.
And I was drawn to it. But the nuns were not nice. They weren't nice to me. And they
Yeah.
certainly weren't nice to the patients who were not Catholic.
Yeah.
So there was very much a hierarchy that I saw as a teenager that I wanted nothing to do with.
Mm.
Because I thought this is if you gave money to the Catholic Church and your kids, if the patient's kids, because they were elderly, were priests or nuns or had given a lot to the church, they were treated well, and the ones who weren't were not treated well at all.
Yeah.
So early on, I thought, okay, I don't like this. I don't know what I like and what I believe in, but I don't like this.
Yeah.
So that kind of set me up to later. So my brother, my older brother, he's a year older than me in school. He got involved with Fellowship of Christian Athletes. Have you heard of that?
No.
FCA. Um, so he got involved in that in high school, and his friends got it. They were born again. They were different. They changed. They went away to this camp and they came back different.
Always a
And like
camp. There's
camp,
always a
something
camp.
about camp, right? Like something happens and then
Yeah.
they come back and they're on this mountaintop, right?
Yeah.
And again, there's that thing with me was, well, I don't have that. I want that. And I had a boyfriend at the time who had gotten involved with it, and like no one was telling me about this. Like, how come no one's talking? I want this. And I didn't know what it was, but I just knew they were talking about God, and I was interested in God. I have OCD, if you know what that is,
Yeah.
and I have anxiety and depression that goes along with that. So, going back, I was always an anxious kid. So for me to like want to belong, I think it's a natural human thing
Yeah.
to, hey,
Yeah.
what is that? I want to belong. That seems good. God, okay, that sounds good. And so no one ever told me. And then when I was 19, I was in college, really struggling in college. My brother shared the four spiritual laws with me, which is four simple steps and how you can know God in a personal way.
Yep.
And so you were going back to big difference, right, between knowing God in a personal way and then this sort of religious
Mm.
kind of strict part that I was brought up in. That sounded great to me. He asked me, would you like to know God in a personal way? And part of it, Sam, was he was my older brother and I looked up to him and he was paying attention to me.
Yeah.
And I liked that. And I was finally finding out what it was all about. I was finally getting noticed and I was getting the privilege of being told what this thing was that all these people had done. And so he said, would you like to know God in a personal way? And I said, of course, who wouldn't?
I mean, and also, like you said, it's your older brother, and like, what else are you to say in that scenario when you have no other information to go on? Because I imagine up until this point, like you've been going to church, you've been doing all of these things with your family, but you're not actually really just getting taught anything. You're just hearing a whole bunch of things without any context or information to make sense of any of it. And so
Yeah, exactly.
the logical answer that somebody is going to give there is, of course, yes, because there would be elements of confusion and longing to just want to be a part of something.
Exactly. That's
Yeah.
exactly what it is. And also, you put on top of that that I was so young. I went away to school for the first time. I left home. I didn't really like the party scene. I never really
Mm.
did. I wasn't that kind of kid.
Yeah.
And so that was overwhelming to me. And I grew up in the 70s, which sounds like, oh, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Well, that hadn't really hit yet,
Mm.
And so, and where I live, my peer group, we weren't doing that. We weren't having, we just weren't. We were still
Yeah.
pretty conservative, even though it wasn't religiously conservative.
Yeah.
Um, so for me to go away to college and experience all this stuff that I hadn't experienced yet,
Mm.
for him to, kind of give me this other thing that I could do that sounded good, to be safe,
Mm.
to have a group of people that supposedly cared about me.
Yeah.
Hey, this sounds great, especially because it was my brother and I trusted him. And I wanted him to look up to me too
Yeah.
and, you know, be noticed.
Yeah. So 19-year-old Stacy met Jesus, I'm assuming.
I
And
did, I did.
what did she think?
Oh, I thought it was great. I certainly knew that I had done something, Sam. And when I
Yeah.
look back on it, I think I don't, I did not know what I did.
Mm.
I went through this 4 steps,
Mm.
tracked, turn the page, pray this prayer at the end. And the interesting thing is I did feel something, and so for so long I thought I was born again.
Mm.
And what it was I know now is I was feeling noticed, accepted, and loved, and a sense of belonging. That's what I had been looking for my whole life.
Yeah.
My parents were not warm, loving people at all. I never heard I love you. I didn't, they're just very strict and had their own trauma that was untreated, unmanaged, all that. So for me to have done something great and to be noticed and be paid attention to, I liked a lot.
Yeah.
And I had never read the Bible. So all of a sudden, when my Catholic friends, they couldn't even touch a Bible. I mean, there's no way. You were not supposed to read it. It was
Yeah.
only the priests.
Yes.
So to be told that I could have my own Bible, that I could start reading it, and here's where you start.
Mm.
Wow.
Yeah.
It was kind of exciting. And
Yeah.
I felt loved. I mean, people were calling me. I got involved in Campus Crusade for Christ because my brother was.
Yes.
He was going to UCLA. Do you know what UCLA is?
I know of it, and I know of Campus Crusades. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, you do.
Yeah.
Yeah, they call it crew now.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think you have it in
We have crew,
Australia.
yeah, crew camps, things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So, and I know it's still very much going on. They just
Yes.
changed the name. So anyway, I got involved because that's what you do.
Mm,
And I think I was learning about the love of God,
mm.
but I quickly learned, and I swear it was like 2 weeks. And then all of a sudden, I was a commodity to them.
Yeah.
I was a vice president in my sorority, and they saw that as they didn't have a presence in the Greek system. And so I became that person that was there into the Greek system. And I knew nothing. I mean, I had never opened a Bible. I didn't know the difference between the Old and the New Testament. I
Oh,
know. So I like say I wasn't a baby Christian. I was a preemie. I knew
yeah.
nothing. And all of a sudden, I was like a leader.
Well, I mean, realistically, Stacey, some of the leaders of the church, they've not read the Bible properly either, so it's not that much of a stretch. Um,
I know.
but it does happen, particularly if you have a certain quality of whatever they are looking for at the time. Um, groups like that find how useful you can be to them very,
Yeah,
very quickly.
yeah, totally. And I think I was so starved for love
Mm.
that I mistook it for love.
Yeah.
People start like disciples, whatever group you're involved in, they have someone that meets with you on a regular basis, right? And
Mhm.
Campus Crusade was big on that.
Yeah.
So these different people would start meeting with me, and I thought, wow, oh, they like me. And I had friends. I just was a teenager. I was finding myself, right? I was exploring and doing all the things that young teenagers do. And I had certainly done that in high school. But, all of a sudden, these kind of people that I was looking up to were paying attention to me. And I thought it was love. I
Yeah.
was mistaking it for love.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's what we will often refer to as like conditional belonging, which is that you belong
Yes.
whilst ever you serve a purpose for us. But usually, what comes before that, I call it the newcomer effect, but technically, it's just love bombing. But it is full of those, like you've got a coffee here and a lunch date there, and like a chat here, and it's all of those, like how many connection points can we make with this person to truly and really embed them here and in this space
Yes.
and in this group? Um, I'm curious though, as that sort of like preemie Christian, whatever we want to call it,
Yes.
um, who did you feel like God was to you at that point? Like, did you have any concept of who he was for you then?
I know that's a good question. I did feel like I knew him, and that he knew me,
Mm,
but it didn't last long.
yeah.
And I think it was now when I look back on it, I'm still kind of going through for myself, like, what was that? What did that really mean? And I really think it was um, people telling me, Sam, I wasn't able to discover for myself
Yeah.
anything. It was all being taught to me rather than me asking questions, being learning. It was all very curated
Yeah. And it
and
sounds like,
scripted.
yeah, it also sounds like up until that point, like if you were existing in spaces but not really getting taught from your parents, that like ability for us as humans to be curious and to ask questions was not instilled in you. It was very
No.
much, I imagine, that like children are seen and not heard kind of mentality. Um, which then means that like you've gone from not being able to ask questions, not being able to necessarily even be curious about things, to people not necessarily teaching you how to think, but they're teaching you what to think. So you've just gone
Yes,
from one space to another where you don't get to utilize that curiosity part of you.
exactly. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
I could never be curious
Mm.
because life was presented to me from my mom specifically, because my dad traveled a lot, but specifically her because she had so much fear in her own life. And
Mm.
I absorbed that fear.
Mm.
So, how do you manage this very scary world, right? You manage it by not doing certain things.
Yeah.
Asking questions does not guarantee safety.
Yeah.
Asking questions in their minds, right, got you in trouble.
Mm.
And maybe you were going to explore then, and maybe you're going to explore things that would get you in trouble.
Mm.
So, no, I never learned that. I never learned that. So to have these people that sort of had the answers for
Mm.
me, yeah. And they
Yeah.
certainly said they had the answers.
I bet.
Jesus is the answer, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So we're in this like crew group. How did your faith,
Yes.
because also I know the Cliff Notes version in the sense that I know how
Yeah.
long you spent in the evangelical space anyway. And so
Yeah.
then it's not necessarily clicking. There is like all of these things. It's not necessarily what it was told to you that it was. How did your faith then evolve moving forward?
Well, it very quickly evolved into transactional, conditional, right?
Yeah.
So I very much wanted to be a part of this because, again, what felt good to me was being safe in the world, belonging, accepted, love. So, how do I get this? How do I maintain this?
Mm.
Right? And this is all after looking back, this is bird's eye hindsight
Yeah.
now. But at the time, I know I literally thought, I've got to maintain this. How do I do it? And it was very much taught to me by getting involved,
Yeah.
by becoming involved, and by teaching others, So in other words, I was born again now. And, Sam, I had no concept of hell. I didn't know that once I prayed that prayer, I was rescued from hell. I don't think I quite understood and learned that for a long time. I mean,
Right.
I could go into so much. I could go on for hours. Like, wow, I was going to hell before I prayed that prayer. Like,
Yeah.
I think that came way later because it was like, what the hell?
Yeah.
Um, so anyway, um, so I learned that quickly learned that I had to be like a leader, because the higher up you go, as far as the more you give, the more you serve,
Yeah.
the better you are, the better Christian you are. And so that's what I did. Because yeah.
I am curious about the hell aspect because you're
Hmm.
existing in an evangelical space. It is called evangelical for a reason because a whole core component of it is evangelizing to other people and telling other people about Jesus to save them from hell, essentially.
Yes.
So, what I imagine that was a core part of what you were being taught, which was how to tell other people about Jesus and
Yep.
to, right? So, what did you at the time think that you were doing if not saving them from eternal conscious torment?
I know. I think at the beginning it was like, well, I have this wonderful thing, so I have to share it. I mean, that was what was being taught to me was that
Yeah,
now, like, I couldn't just have it for myself because that would be so selfish,
yeah,
right? I
yeah.
had to now share it with other people, which I hated, by the way. Always hated that. Like, Campus Crusade prided itself on cold turkey evangelism, meaning
Yeah.
here I was in college, I would meet with my discipler person, and we would go out and
Mm,
evangelize.
yeah.
Hated it. It was bait and switch, 100%. And I was always glad when it was over. So I think the hell thing was, it just sort of happened. I just sort of absorbed it slowly because it's so hard to
Mm,
swallow that,
yeah.
right? Hell, eternal conscious torment.
Yeah.
So
Mm,
yeah.
okay. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, it's like it's always just interesting to understand what people's motivations were at that time, like what was driving us to do the things that still like sometimes we are recognition like we are like able to recognize at the time what is driving us or what is making us feel uncomfortable and things like that. But sometimes we're not. And I think sometimes it shows just how automated and um, like instinctual it is once that indoctrination process starts.
Oh yeah, I mean there was no questions.
Yeah.
You just this is what you did. This,
Yeah.
it's what you had to do.
Mm.
Otherwise, what? Otherwise, you were nominal, you were backsliding, you were all the things that you didn't want to be, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
So,
So I imagine if everything was centered around that sort of like transactional, trying to stay within that belonging space, I imagine you did much similar to what I did, which is you did all of the things.
all of them.
Yeah.
I
Shit,
was so
it's
good, Sam.
exhausting, right?
Yeah, not to mention I was in college, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and I think back on it, and it's like I was going to college to be
Yeah.
in college. And then I was in nursing school. So I transferred, and of course I transferred schools and I transferred Campus Crusade chapters or whatever and made friends. And so that's where it's confusing too, right? Because I made friends. I had these core groups of friends and we had fun, but there was always this ministry aspect to it. I
Mm.
wasn't really in school or college to go to college. I was there because God had me there to save people. College was
Secondary.
immaterial
Yeah.
compared to,
Yeah, it was
which is
secondary.
which is ridiculous.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I had someone, Sam, because we used to go to conferences. I had this guy who I look up to, one of my brother's friends who was in ministry, say to me, "Why are you in nursing school when there are people out there dying and going to hell?"
Oh,
Yeah.
that's a
And I was
nice load of
young.
emotional manipulation.
Yeah, and I will never forget that. I mean, that
Gosh.
lives in my brain,
Yeah.
and I was maybe 21, 22 at the time. And I was like, wow, he's right. Which
Mm.
is, yeah, not good.
No, and I mean it just guilt and fear are such core components of what drives you to continue in those spaces a lot of the time because otherwise the alternative feels unfathomable.
Totally unfathomable. I would
Yeah.
lose my place.
Yeah. But also,
And
you would be potentially risking everybody else's place. Like, if you
yeah,
believed that, like, it was your responsibility to be telling other people about Jesus to save them from hell, and if you chose not to do that, then you are not just risking your place, you're risking everybody else's place.
totally. I'm letting
Yeah.
so many people down.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was easily vulnerable to being manipulated that way.
Yeah.
And I know I'm not alone in that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think once that indoctrination process starts, it's very easy for people to manipulate most people in that way. You are left in a really emotionally and spiritually vulnerable place,
Yeah.
where, they are the only answers and they are the only people who have the answers.
Yeah.
But I am curious, because I know, and I'm going to spoil this here a little bit, but I know that you existed, and I actually think you might be the longest that I've had on the podcast, maybe. Um, but you existed in the evangelical space for 40 years, right?
Yeah. It's hard to admit that, but yes, correct.
So I imagine, so this obviously went long after college, and I imagine you did the very good Christian girl thing and got married and had babies and, did all of those things. And so was existing in evangelical church life much similar or different to evangelical college life?
Well, I met my husband in Campus Crusade, and we're still married, 40 years this year. We've been on quite a journey, as you can imagine. He was involved, had been involved with the Navigators, which is another, we're kind of parachurch, not wannabes, parachurch junkies. So, because we never really were involved in church. I mean, within the evangelical space, as you know, there's a hierarchy of things like Campus Crusade. Other evangelical people talk bad about other groups, other churches, right? Like we're the best.
Yeah.
We have the best way of doing it. We are so, which is ridiculous. However, navigators were pretty good. He was, so yeah, I got married, worked for a little while, got pregnant, we were on staff with the navigators. So that was because that was something you did. Like if you went on staff or you went into full-time ministry, you were like top notch, right?
Yeah.
So we did that. Hated it. I hated it. But at the time, it's what I had thought I had to do. So I was really
Yeah.
good at stuffing things down. Really good at that. Um, but when you're taught that this is it, this is, I couldn't speak for myself. I couldn't advocate for myself. The people that were above us, we went to an Air Force base. We were in charge of this Air Force base. I was a young mom. And I had nothing. I was so lonely. So I had so much anxiety and depression. My son had been born with a craniofacial condition. But you're taught that God is all you need. If you have friends, it's friends that encourage you in the Lord and you can talk. But when there's people dying and going to hell, you're not supposed to have any needs. You have no needs.
Yeah.
You have no concerns or problems that can't be solved with prayer, with God, so I stuffed it all down.
Yeah.
And, you know, it comes out sooner or later. So it's very hard to raise support. Um, we were poor. Uh, I hated it. And so we were so poor, my husband had to get a job, which very much felt like a failure. Like if you really trusted God, if you're really, he's going to provide for you. Well, we weren't being, we couldn't pay rent. I mean, it was ridiculous. We were both college graduates.
Mm.
So he went and got a job. Um, I had another child. Anyhow, we lived in Arizona. We ended up moving to Oregon. And we were still very much feeling we left the ministry, but we thought we had so much guilt about it, so much. But he was working, making money, and it felt so good, Sam. It was like, oh my gosh, a regular paycheck is a nice thing.
Yeah.
Health benefits, right? Because when you're raising support, you have to raise a certain amount of support to get health benefits, to get any benefits. And we hardly had any. We didn't have any money. So to be able to have just kind of a regular life, I was staying at home with our kids, which is what I wanted to do. And then he was working, but we felt so guilty and ashamed for not being in the ministry.
Yeah.
So I got involved in Community Bible Study, another parachurch organization. I don't know if you've heard of that. I know they have it in Australia too. It's an international organization. Its aim is to reach people for Christ through his word. So Community Bible Study. And for me, it meant being with other moms and, that kind of thing. And again, same thing. If I was to be anything, I was going to be a leader. And I put them off for like 3 or 4 years because I was not doing well mentally. I was not doing well. I was having anxiety attacks. I was depressed. And I was honest with them. I said, they kept asking me to be a leader. And I said, I'm not well. I'm barely making it here. And they said, oh, that's okay. That's okay. You just come and you be a leader. And everything will take care of itself. So, in other words, the message I got was if you put God first and you just trust Him to provide for you, He'll take care of everything,
Yeah.
right? And so I finally did become a leader, and I was a leader for them for way too long.
I mean, it sounds like you didn't get given a choice, though. Like, to be fair, like it's a space that thrives on just emotional suppression and spiritual bypassing, where, you know, like your earthly needs, in
Yeah,
inverted commas for those listening, your earthly needs are just like pale in comparison to eternal needs. And um, it is on you if you are struggling because you shouldn't be if you are truly devoted to God. And so the guilt and the pressure and the shame that inflicts on someone, what actual choice did you have but to step into the leadership role in that space? Because otherwise you risk essentially social annihilation.
completely. And even eternal
Yeah.
annihilation. I literally did not know there was another way. And certainly, if I had pursued other ways of getting help, which I did, therapy and all that, you really feel like a failure
Mm,
because you're not memorizing enough or studying enough or praying enough or trusting enough.
mm,
That certainly was the message for a long time. And if I had said that to people now that are still in it, they would say, "Oh, Stacy, well, of course." And again, that's just a way of gaslighting and bypassing, because that wasn't true. I did try to speak out, little
mm.
like, I'm not doing well. I'm not feeling well. I feel like I'm depressed. I feel like,
Yeah.
yeah, never got any really true help. I did myself get it, but not without tremendous amount of guilt and shame and even fear that I was doing something outside of God's will.
How did that impact how you related to who God was for you then, as like an adult, a mom, like just, not that preemie Christian at the time? Like you're now
Um,
well into your evangelical era. Um, like how did that impact how you were relating to God then?
it was always transactional.
Yeah.
Again, it's so much relates to my relations here, right?
Hmm.
Where my relationship with God was just like that. I mean, the dreaded quiet time,
Yeah.
right? It's like, oh, I have this quiet time and it's all transactional, prayer and reading this new book or whatever it was. It was never good enough,
Mm.
right? And I did not have peace.
Yeah.
The peace that surpasses all understanding didn't have that. So what I kept thinking was I got to do more, be more, be more. There was the carrot that was always being dangled, I felt in front of me that I never quite was able to catch. I just never quite got it,
Mm.
you know?
So after, 40 years in the evangelical space, what on earth led you out? Because that is like a hefty chunk of time to devote to a particular space. And we know how hard it is to leave that in the first place, let alone after it is, now more than what you have known otherwise.
Yes.
What led you out?
Yeah. Well, I don't like the word deconstructing. I do. It's fine. It's a word that
It's a
can describe.
hashtag.
It's a hashtag, and if you say it, then I'm like, okay, I think we're on the same page. And
Yeah.
so in the way it's good. I call it like totally dismantling or destroying.
Yeah.
Because what happened for me is I was always deconstructing
Mm.
in my mind and in my heart. Hell, the LGBTQ community, um, the Bible,
Yeah.
and I'm just going to say it here. This is my grandkids do when they want to tell me something. So it's like so cute. But like I find myself doing that too. But it's like, I don't like the Bible. And I
Mm.
never did. And I spent so because there were so many things in it that I thought, I don't like this. I can't stand this. This is weird. Oh, must need to keep doing more. So what happened is I was very, at this time, very, very, very involved in the top group in CBS. And it was a local thing. There's local groups, just like a church, and then there's like maybe a regional, national, and international, right? Then there's a head of the whole organization, like a president.
Yeah.
But I was pretty high up there, and I had been with this group for a long time. And we were the leaders. And I thought they were my friends. I thought I had other really good friends, but the lady, the person who was top in this class had all the authority, and she was what I thought was my friend. Our sons are still friends. I got asked to do a bigger role in our area. I was going to be the area director of 5 classes, and I was all of a sudden going to be over her.
Ah.
And let's just say it did not go well because she didn't like that I was going to leave her control. And so she did everything in her power. And part of that was really bad mouthing me to the higher ups and saying all these bad things about me. And I know it's true because she told me, and the person that was turned out to be my boss told me that she bad mouthed me to try to not get me to take this position. But I took it anyway. And it was a really hard position. I had very, very little training for it. But again, Sam, well, God equips the called,
Yeah.
right? So he's going to equip me.
Yeah.
Magic wand, boom, boom, boom. So it was very hard. I had a lot of challenges. I was doing a good job though, really good job. I got this. There was one lady who was being abusive. She was such an abusive, awful person in this class. We got her out. It was really hard. So anyway, my friend that was above me sabotaged my whole. She literally like tripped me up every chance she could to make my job hard. And she made it so hard that I quit. I just said, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
And she knew it. And at the time, I didn't have the wherewithal to say, fuck you, basically.
Yeah.
And, um, but it was so incredibly painful. And it's like, I love your Wicked
Oh,
illustrations. I
I
love
could
it.
talk about Wicked for
Me
hours.
too. And I'm in a choir right now and we're singing Wicked songs and I'm like so
Uh,
happy. I love Wicked. But it was, it was totally the Oz behind the curtain. I had seen behind the curtain in a lot of ways, Sam,
yeah.
and I really got to see it in this situation. And this is a person that was abusive to me that no one would ever believe was abusive because she presented in such a way. But the truth is, she was abusive.
Yeah.
And so I left. And then our elections are, God, I probably can't say, but I feel like it's a shit show over
Oh
here.
yeah. It 100% is. Yeah.
Okay.
And shit
Yeah.
show is what I would usually refer to it as because I don't,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you. It's embarrassing. It's horrifying. And 2016, I hate to say it, I voted for him because I was still in it and because I was thought that I had to. And oh my God, I've given myself grace for that, you know.
Yeah.
And then the all the scales started coming off. So it was like a global thing, COVID. And I know that's very typical. A lot
Yeah.
of people between the elections in the US and then COVID, it was like this ability to see for the first time, oh my God, this is not right.
Yeah.
I don't like this. So I spent a few years in that. Like, I don't like this. I don't know what to do. But COVID and being out of this ministry kind of gave me a chance to go, what, you know, so a few things I mean, I could go on so long, but I don't know how much time we have um left, but it all just kind of came crashing down like almost 4 years ago now, where
Yeah.
I just lost it. My husband and I, so if you come out of one ministry, you can't leave a ministry without getting involved in another ministry because you can't be out there floundering. Certainly Satan is going to get in there and you got to be involved. You got to be in the word, you got to be in fellowship. So I thought, well, at the time I still believed in a personal God. And so I thought, well, maybe God wants me to get involved in my church. That's a whole other story. We got involved, again, top people involved in a Bible study, and they were saying things in this Bible study that I no longer could swallow.
Yeah.
I just couldn't do it. Um, things about health, things about I lost it one day and I told my husband, I can't do this anymore.
Mm.
I'm done. I'm completely done. And he had deconstructed a while back. I was still very involved in things, which
Okay,
he
because I
was,
was going to ask, because sometimes that doesn't go very well, especially when you are raised in it, or like you are existing in a marriage where, like, typically the man is the head of the household and the
yeah,
spiritual head of the household. For you to
yes.
go to him, I imagine there must have been a level of, he is not going to like spiritually condemn or force our household to keep doing this.
Yeah. I mean, he we've always had an interesting relationship because we have been pretty just, you know, equal,
Hmm.
but I very much had this thing where I've got to acquiesce to him to be safe,
Mm.
because that was what taught me. The man was
Yeah.
all the things, and we didn't have a relationship like that, but I still had that indoctrination and we still talk about it all the time. But he was like, fine, well, yeah, of course, whatever you want, whatever, And I just remember yelling at him, like, no, I don't think you understand what this is and what this means. I don't want anything to do with any of this anymore.
Yeah.
Like, I was just I honestly was like breaking down. And he was great with it, and we talk a lot
Mm.
all the time. And that's why we're still together. Another thing I want to say is that my kids are in their 30s, later 30s now. And I love millennials, Gen Xers, whatever. They were the ones who were like, they would say to me, mom, like, I have friends who are gay. I will never, ever, ever say they can't.
Yeah.
And so they were the ones who really, my daughter's a therapist. She got out of, like she says, her little bubble, and she works with very marginalized groups of people, which I'm so proud of her for. And she would say, Mom, and she would say, please open your mind. Please open your mind to this. And I finally did, Sam. And that's when it all just kind of came like this. It all sort of came crashing down. And there's so much more in that. A pastor's wife,
Mm.
became friends with me. I know you had Brandy Hadfield
Oh,
on, who
yeah.
started Juice Plus. The pastor's wife had me get involved with her with Juice Plus.
Oh.
I was only involved with that for a couple of years, but
Yeah.
that honestly also, because there's so much involved in that, but I thought Juice Plus and the evangelical world are very similar.
Oh, I mean, I think Brandy and I mentioned it in the
Oh,
episode,
yeah.
which is that most, not all, but a lot of MLMs are very similar to like a fundamental evangelical space. They
A
run on
hundred
same
percent.
the same they have the same bones, they just do it for a different purpose, essentially. So, and a good portion of them are run by evangelicals anyway. So it
Oh
kind
yeah,
of
that
just
was a hundred
yeah.
percent my when I heard her thing, I thought, oh, I felt sorry for her because she's not
Yeah.
evangelical, but she got drawn into that.
Mm,
And I was the opposite where and I just remember thinking, I want nothing to do with any of this
mm,
anymore.
yeah.
I just can't do it. And so,
And so when that sort of like dismantling happened, what was that like for you personally? Like, because I know for like everybody deals and feels their deconstruction or whatever we want to call it. I call it detangling. The ex-Mormon space calls it their broken shelf. Like it just, there's so many different
oh,
languages. But what was that like for you?
horrifying,
Yeah.
hard. I mean, when I first left CBS, I felt very unmoored, unanchored, um, adrift in an ocean.
Mm,
Um, didn't know where to go, didn't know who I was so indoctrinated is you have a problem, you go to God or you go to your prayer chain, right?
mm,
I immediately pick up the phone. Oh, I need prayer, I need prayer. Um, so it was it was just like, what do I do? Where do I go? Who am I?
mm,
What am I? What do I even decide for myself? And thankfully, I have a strong, good core family, and then my kids and my husband, and then some good friends who are also deconstructing. But I I also thought I had to do it in a certain way.
yeah.
You know, I had to deconstruct and reconstruct, and people would say, well, don't throw Jesus out. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Mm,
Don't, I felt like people were telling me how to do it. And
yeah.
I realize now I just say fuck all that.
Mm,
Whenever anyone now sort of, I get this inkling that they're trying to tell me how to be, what to be, how to think, I'm like, I'm out of here
yeah.
because I just so, but that took a long time and it's certainly been a process and it's hard and it's scary and but I am so proud of myself for doing it.
Yeah.
And um I feel so free. I have freedom and peace that I've never had. Um I never had in that space.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I don't want to label myself as anything because I don't like labels, but I don't know. I wouldn't say I have any sort of spirituality.
Mm. It almost is like you knew I was going to ask something about that, which is because I usually ask, like, what your sense of spirituality or not is now.
Well, I mean, when I first started, I couldn't read the Bible. It was so traumatizing,
Yeah.
and I believe it had been used as a weapon of
Yeah.
control for me. So I couldn't even, because it would just be like instant, right, panic attack. So I put it away. I don't even know where it is. So it was that I slowly like I started reading a lot of books that were like not
Yeah.
good in the evangelical space. If you can believe it, like one of them was The Shack of
Oh my
all.
gosh, I remember reading that and feeling
Really?
so guilty reading it.
Me
I was like,
too.
how dare they describe God as a woman?
I know. And like it was so like like I was not supposed to read it and I felt so guilty. I'm like, oh, I'm reading The Shack.
I
Ah.
know.
And so it was stuff like that that now it's quite, I would say that's quite a Christian book now,
Yes.
you
I would never
know.
read The Shack now. Ever.
Same,
Yeah.
same. Now I'm like, okay, I don't even like that. So I think I had to slowly give myself permission to read things I wasn't supposed to. And then I kind of let go of that. I started reading books like about a different kind of Christianity, and I couldn't swallow it. I
Yeah.
couldn't swallow what they were feeding me.
Yeah.
And um podcasts, finding, um and I've slowly let like most of it go.
Yeah.
And so spiritually, I don't believe in God. I really don't. I wouldn't say I'm an atheist. I'm agnostic
Hmm.
and very much for humans. For my whole life, practically, it was like people are going to die and go to hell. So that's all that matters. And now I'm like, no, like we matter. The earth matters.
Mm.
People matter. People's suffering matters. And I love that. So I don't know. That's what I say a lot, Sam. I don't know.
I know, but isn't it nice to be able to say, I don't know, and to not feel like intense dread and panic?
Yes.
It's
And
so
it took a little
nice.
while to get there. And
Yeah.
I'm there. And it's wonderful to
Yeah.
not have a place. I don't have to land anywhere.
Yeah.
But I would say I land on love,
Mm.
kindness,
Yeah.
all the maybe fruits of the spirit.
It's
You
so
know,
easy. My wife gets so frustrated sometimes, but I'm like, I can just like spout off things and I can find a Christian connection like the best of people, um, out
me
of
too.
like absolutely nothing because as you said it, I was like, oh yeah, it's the fruit of the spirit. But
Yeah.
like we don't have to call it that. And also just because it's written in a book doesn't mean they own the monopoly on those things and those parts of humanity. And I think that's a really beautiful place for people to land where you can experience joy and peace and love and faithfulness and all of those things and not have any sort of religious connotation attached to them because religion doesn't own those things.
I know. And I love that. And I feel like I'm in the tip of the iceberg with so much of that, but it's also wonderful to
Mm.
be able to learn other other things than just this box that I was told I could never go outside the box.
Yeah.
And it turns out that outside the box is like wonderful and that I get to choose.
Yeah.
I can choose for myself and I can trust myself.
Mm. I
Yeah.
imagine that has done wonders for your mental health also.
Yeah. Wonders, wonders. And I certainly that could be a whole thing too,
Yeah.
right? The mental health aspect I mean, I was suffering with my mental health
Yeah.
and still in so many evangelical spaces, it's not,
Mm.
biblical counseling is the only way, all of that could be a
Mhm.
whole nother thing.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, and I'm involved with mental health now, and it's wonderful.
Yeah.
And to get people the proper help, to get myself the proper help.
Yeah.
And yeah, I would say I feel like I'm a much better person,
Yeah.
much healthier. Yeah.
I don't often get to be able to ask questions like this, but I am going to because how do you look back on the last 40 years of your life?
Yeah. I try not to too much.
And then you
Um,
willingly come on podcast to talk about it.
I know. And like, why would I want to talk about it? Because I'm older
Mm.
and I want to give hope to people and to kids. It can happen. And also, I look at it as part of my journey. If I look at it like regret, 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 I mean, I could really go down a rabbit hole and become depressed, right? That, oh my gosh, you spent so many of your years.
Mm.
And certainly there are things that I'm glad for in those spaces, although, if I could do it all over, but I can't. And the reality is I can't. So what I will do is just go forward and I will live the rest of my life
Yeah.
just moving forward and not being afraid and, all the things that I want to be. And I get to discover who I am.
Yeah.
So,
I as you well know, I like to finish some of these episodes with some encouragement for people.
mm,
And so what would you say to someone, I'm gonna sort of like give you a double-barreled because I want to get two perspectives from you and two lots of encouragement. But like, what would you say to someone who is in a similar position to 19-year-old Stacy and someone who might be in a similar position to where you were 4 years ago after spending 40 years in this space?
Mm. So what would I say to my 19-year-old self?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like you're stronger than you think you are. You know more than you think you do.
Yeah.
And to trust your gut and to trust your intuition. They're not bad things. They're there for a reason.
Mm,
And that you are loved and you are lovable,
mm,
and be yourself. Be your feisty, snarky self. That helped me.
yeah.
And even though I was shamed for being snarky, not the quiet, submissive person,
Mm,
um, yeah, that is who you are and that's who you can be. And then 4 years ago, I would say, it's okay, keep going, keep
mm,
going. You're gonna make it. And you're gonna find more freedom and more wide open spaces, and the world is not as scary as you think. And that you can, again, you can trust yourself, you can trust your gut and your intuition, and you can trust your choices.
mm. I love
Yeah.
that. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Sam. It's been wonderful.
I
Thank you for
really
listening.
Yeah, I really appreciate having a voice for people who might have spent a really lengthy time or who might still be in that space, who might be in a more progressive space but have still spent, decades of their life in this space, who might not be able to relate to someone who was born into it or who might have only spent 5 or 10 years in a space. And so I
Mm,
appreciate having a vast variety of voices on these episodes. So thank you again.
thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Beyond the Surface. I hope you found today's conversation as insightful and inspiring as I did. If you enjoyed the episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with others who might benefit from these stories. Stay connected with us on social media for updates and more content. I love connecting with all of you. Remember, no matter where you are in your journey, you're not alone. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep moving forward. Take care.